Fast and Furious 11 is rumored to be the true ending of the saga, but if you look closely at Fast X and the entire franchise, it feels less like an ending and more like a revelation that everything from the very first movie was slowly building toward one final story where Dominic Toretto was forced to face not just a villain but the consequences of the life he chose and the family he created, because Fast 11 is not really about racing cars or stopping a superweapon, it is about closing a circle that started back in 2001 when Dom was just a street racer in Los Angeles who believed that family was something simple and local and not a global responsibility, and this is where the main theory begins. Fast 11 will reveal that Dante Reyes was never acting alone and that his plan was never just revenge for his father Hernan Reyes but a systematic collapse of everything Dom built over the years using the one weakness: Dom has always had loyalty. Fast X already showed us that Dante does not kill randomly, he manipulates situations so that Dom's family is constantly forced to split up, and Fast 11 will take this even further by revealing that Dante has been studying Dom since the early days, meaning that many events in previous movies were not coincidences but calculated domino effects, including the return of characters we thought were gone forever like Brian O'Connor, who will not return as an action hero, but as the moral anchor of the story, because Fast 11 theory suggests Brian has been off the grid not because he retired but because he saw where this life was heading and chose to protect his family by stepping away, and this makes his eventual reappearance incredibly powerful because when Brian comes back it will be to confront Dom, not fight alongside him, and tell him that the line between protecting family and endangering them was crossed a long time ago, which ties directly into the rumored internal conflict of Fast 11 where Dom is no longer sure if winning is even possible without losing the people he loves, and this is supported by hidden clues in Fast X like the constant emphasis on fate, destiny and choice, especially in Dante's dialogue where he mocks Dom not as a hero but as a predictable man who always does the same thing, and that predictability is exactly how Dante plans to win, because Fast 11 will likely open with the immediate aftermath of the Fast X cliffhanger revealing that some characters survived not through luck but through secret interventions from unknown allies, possibly Mr. Nobody or even remnants of the old government task forces from Fast 5 and Furious 7, which would explain how the franchise can bring everyone back together for one final mission that is not about stopping Dante but about dismantling the system that allowed someone like Dante to gain so much power. And this is where the hidden theme of Fast 11 becomes clear: the real enemy is not one man but the cycle of violence and escalation that the Fast family has been part of for years, and the film will allegedly mirror the structure of Fast 5 by bringing the entire crew together for one last coordinated plan, but instead of stealing money or exposing a villain they will attempt to erase themselves from the global chessboard, destroying data, identities and alliances that keep pulling them back into conflict. And one of the darkest theories suggests that Dom's death has been foreshadowed for years, not as a tragic sacrifice but as a symbolic ending where Dom fakes his death to finally allow the family to live normal lives, because Dominic Toretto has always been larger than life, and Fast 11 might be the only way to end his story without betraying the myth by turning him into a legend rather than a man, which would explain why the franchise keeps emphasizing legacy children and the next generation, because the future of Fast and Furious is not Dom driving forever but Dom making sure no one else has to, and the final confrontation with Dante is theorized to be less about fists and explosions and more about Dante realizing that his obsession with Dom has left him empty, because unlike Dante, Dom actually built something real, and when Dante loses control for the first time it will be because Dom refuses to play his game anymore, choosing to save his family instead of defeating his enemy, which flips the entire franchise formula on its head and connects perfectly to the original movies ending where Dom lets Brian go, showing that mercy and choice were always more important than winning. And this is why Fast 11 might end not with a race but with silence, a family dinner echoing the iconic table scenes but without tension, without secrets, just closure. And the final shot theory suggests we will see the original 1970 Charger one last time, not racing, not crashing but parked, symbolizing that the journey is over and that Fast and Furious was never about speed, it was about the people you slow down for. And if this theory is true, Fast 11 will not just be another sequel, it will retroactively change how we see the entire saga, transforming it from a chaotic action franchise into a long story about identity, loyalty and the cost of never letting go. And that is why Fast 11 could be the most emotional and divisive movie in the franchise, because it will finally ask the question fans avoided for years: what happens when family is no longer enough? And to make this even deeper, there is another layer that many fans missed, which is how Fast 11 could secretly reframe the villains of the past by revealing that Dante was not the first person to see Dom as a symbol rather than a man, because characters like Cypher, Deckard Shaw and even Hobbs all reacted to Dom in extreme ways, either trying to control and destroy him or use him. And Fast 11 theory suggests that this pattern will finally be acknowledged on screen, with Dom realizing that by constantly stepping into the role of the unstoppable protector he unintentionally created monsters who defined themselves by opposing him, and this realization could be the emotional turning point of the film, where Dom understands that the only way to truly win is to stop being the center of the storm, which also opens the door for a quiet but powerful ending where the spotlight shifts to the rest of the family characters like Letty, Roman, Taj, and even the younger generation stepping forward not as replacements but as proof that Dom's influence outlived his presence, and this is why many insiders believe Fast 11 will end without teasing another sequel. No cliffhanger, no post-credit scene, just finality, because Universal knows that the strength of this franchise was never endless escalation but emotional payoff, and if they get this right, Fast 11 will be remembered not for how big the explosions were but for how confidently it chose to stop, and that is something no Fast and Furious movie has ever truly done before.